Oh hey, Jeremy here from Long Speed Marine. Well, the other day I went ahead and got the patch panel done on this side, so now I'm going to go and walk you through how I did it on the other side of the car. So let's get into this now. All right, so on this fender patch over here, I'm going to repair basically from here down. I'm not going to repair this inner piece because it's sound enough, comes all the way down, and I don't really mind. I'll just fix this up a little bit. I'll grind it a little bit and paint this. So what I'm going to do is just do a patch along here. I want to keep this outer lip. This is going to be the hardest thing to replicate, would be this rolled edge. So I'm going to stay inside of this like I did on the other side. I'll come down. I'll have to make sure that I get this part out. So I will have to come a little bit over. I'm going to come all the way down, and same thing on the bottom. I'm going to try and save as much of this along the bottom as I can. So because this edge on the inside here is still solid, so I don't need to, there's no reason to cut that out. And again, it's a bit tougher to replicate. So I'm going to save that. I'm also going to save a bit of this bracket here. I'll just fix it up a little bit, but I'm going to leave that on there and we'll see how it turns out. And yeah, so we'll fix all that up. So what I did, just basically started with my cardboard template. Everything starts with the cardboard template. One of the most important things to get is this door gap. So I've got my nice line on the door gap over here. Again, sorry, let me hold this straight. So follow along the edge and save most of that. I can trim this back a little bit when I get in there. I'm past that little divot on the inside. I can even come down a little bit because there's that hole there. So I'll line that up so it all falls in place. Follow down the bottom and just tack it in. And all I'm doing as I tack this in, I'll show you on the other side. I will show you as I do it, but I'll explain. Basically, I just line the panel up, tack it into place, and just in a couple spots just to hold it. And what I do is I cut away the panel from the back side and push them flush and then weld into place. Now, this doesn't give you a perfect TIG joint or anything that is, you know, a perfect fit up. But it will get you pretty darn close, and it's pretty flat. Here I messed up a little bit. I went a little bit below, but this is going to need filler anyways. There's no way that in this car I'm going to be replacing these panels with my skills that this isn't going to need filler. So I don't mind a little bit if that's what's going to happen. So I will fill in here. I do have a low spot here for some reason, maybe from welding it or whatever, but I'm not quite sure why that happened. I tried hammering it out a little bit. I'm not too concerned with it because it's not going to be very much filler to fill that in anyways. So that's the plan. You basically just cut along, and I cut back as far as I can go, line up the panels, and tack them in. So that's what I'm going to be doing over here on this side. So I took my panel, and what I'm using here is 20 gauge. Now, obviously the rocker panels, the quarter panel patches at the back, I did 18 gauge, but because this metal is so rough as it is, I'm afraid that if I use 18 gauge, my tacks are going to have to be a bit hotter. This metal is about 19 gauge, so 18 gauge is a little bit thicker. Because this metal is rusty and pitted anyways, I want to go with the 20 gauge so that I'm close to the same material that I've got here, thickness, and my tacks don't have to be as long and they can be colder, so I'm not blowing through as much. So that's why I'm going with the 20 gauge on these patch panels, and you can see it is quite solid. So it's solid. I like it. Once I get this panel screwed in, this will wiggle even less. But this is nice and solid. You know, there's no oil can to it. So there's no problem using the 20 gauge on this. Again, like I said, with that thin pitted metal, I'm really worried about it. So I've got my cardboard template here mapped out. So basically I'm just going to cut this out here, and what I will need to do is on this outer edge over here, I'm going to flange this to the curve of my door gap, because there is just a very, very slight curve. I need to maybe touch this up a little bit here, but basically it's just a slight curve that's going to be on this edge. I will flange this over backwards, so once I cut this out I'll mark it on the back side, and then we will put it up on this panel. Now, the right way to do this too would be to pull this quarter panel or this fender back off, and flange it around this lip. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. What I may try to do, and we're going to see if this works, I'm going to try to get it as tight of a flange as I can. So maybe I can back this in on this other side. And so if I can just get it in, open the door, slip it in, and then maybe what I can do with a hammer and my sort of a screwdriver or a flat wedge on the backside, maybe I can tap this in and then flange it over once it's on there. Ideally, obviously, like I said, is if I pull this back off, once I get it welded in, I can pull this back off and hammer that back over that edge afterwards. So we'll see how that goes as far as that. So I'm going to start on just cutting this out, and then I'll show you how I start to do this flange. All right, so I've got my piece cut out. I've got it flipped over. So this will be the back side of the panel. Lined up my template. So now what I'm going to do is mark out this curve here. It's very, very gradual, very slight, but I got to make sure that I put that in there so that it follows the curve on the door. So what I'm going to do is mark this out here. This is actually a little bit long, so I will end up trimming this off. But I'm going to trim it along sort of with this curve. So I'm going to, like I said, mark this out so that this flange can be folded inwards, so backwards, inside the panel, because this is the back. So that's what I'm going to do, mark this out, and I'll get this trimmed up a little bit more, and then I'll show you how I'm going to fold that piece. Okay. So I'm going to use my bead roller to do this. I understand that some of you folks may not have a bead roller. Knowing that I was going to get into all this work, I had saved up my pennies and bought this bead roller. This is from Eastwood, and then also bought their dies for it. A couple things I actually don't like about this bead roller is the way that these dies work with it. They need to use this collar to make the shank bigger, whatever, and so therefore you can't get basically the dies all the way in if you're going to be doing tipping. So I'm tipping this here, and basically this is a tipping die. This isn't a very sharp tipping die. You can buy ones that are pointed. I could also, if I had a lathe, probably go and just turn this in and make this pointed a little bit sharper. But for what I'm doing, it will work fine. So basically you run the panel through, and I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see better once I'm doing it. Follow my line, and I'm just going to keep increasing as I'm tipping this up and get that flange basically to be tipped up. Now, because this is curved, I can't just simply go in my metal brake and make that because it's curved. What I could do if I didn't have the bead roller is you could literally just hammer this over. If you just had a whatever you can use. I've got the pipe anvil that I made as well, so I could use the edge of the round pipe and just start hammering along this end to hammer it over. Now I would make the line on this side so I could hammer this down, but you could just hammer this down, hammer away at it, and then try to get it on a bit of a flat surface as well so that you can finish hammering this over. What I did on the other side, once I got this tipped up and got it to a 90 degree, I just hammered it over afterwards, because that's the way that, the only way that I could figure out to do with, because you can only tip so far on this bead roller. So again, if you're going to be doing a lot of this stuff, you got a car to do, make the investment, get the bead roller. Any tools that you buy, I feel, are always a good investment. But if you don't, you can definitely do this, like I said, by just simply hammering this edge over on a hard surface. If you wanted to grind out something to be round like this, a good hard piece of plywood or plastic If you ground it to that edge, cut it to that edge, you could use it to hammer around, clamp it between two pieces, then you would just have a hole in the center, or if you could put some clamps over it. But that's another way to get this edge clamped in if you didn't have a bead roller. So I'm just going to start gradually here. Get my line set. And it's a very gentle curve. I've actually gone off my line a little bit there. I can fix that hopefully on my next pass. So now this pass I'm going to tip it up a little bit farther. Up. Just going off my line a little bit here. Okay, I'm almost there. Well, so it's putting a slight kink in it because what we're doing on a curve here is we're putting a little bit more metal into this, so I am getting a slight kink. On the other side, I did slice at one point to get rid of that, but we should be okay to keep going. Shouldn't cause us too much of an issue. On this one, I'm going to try and go right 90 degrees and just hold it tight to my panel. Working it nice and slow. Trying to follow my line as best I can. And again, because we're making this in a bit of a curve, it's shrinking a bit of that metal together so you can see I've got my curve, and that should be pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I can tune that up a little bit, but you can see I got a little bit of a wave here, and that's because now with that curve we've got a little bit more metal in this location. So now I'm going to go to the bench, and like I said, I'm just simply going to hammer this over, and I'll crispen up these edges just a little bit with the hammer, and then I'm just going to hammer these over, and I'm not going to go all the way flat with this panel. All right, so this edge over here, it's a little bit wonky, so I'm just wanted to tune that edge up a little bit. Small dolly here. Okay, so I'm just tuning up that edge a little bit before I go all the way over. So now I've got just that slight curve in there. What I can do is go to the car as well and just try this on the car and see if I like it. Yeah, so I like that. That should work well. So now I'm just going to keep hammering and folding this edge over. Now, like I said before, I'm not going to go right tight over with this piece because I want to try and slip it over that flange that it's supposed to be over on the car. So I'm just going to get it a little bit tighter than that, and then I'm going to stop. So I think I'm going to stop there. So you can see I've got my nice little curve in this. I will also need to slightly curve this panel this way, and I'm just simply going to do that by hand. I'm just going to hold it up on the car, try and match the curve of the panel as best I can. And like I said, I'm just going to try and do that by hand. I may take it over to my pipe anvil and try it on the pipe anvil, just giving it a little bit of a bend. But that's all I'm going to do there with that. Okay, so that should work well. So you see I just tuned up this edge. Now, I did realize I did something a little bit silly here. And I forgot to go all the way down at the bottom because I forgot that bottom back piece was rotten out. So what I'll do is I'll just make a small patch. It'll be underneath, won't be a big deal. I'll make a small piece for the bottom that will finish off that edge. All right, so I now got this flange up and in there. There was a bit of a struggle just getting it up and in. So now what I'm going to do is just go and throw a couple tack welds on this, one over here on this side, and then another one over here. And then what I can do is just start cutting away at this, right tight to the actual panel, and tacking it as I go, and then the same thing down this side, and I'll just pull the metal away from the backside. Pretty easy to do. All right, so that's how I do that. I just, like you see, sliced in there, and then make sure that I'm flush, tack it in. So now I'm tacked in there. I'll just repeat the same, going all the way around, and just basically slicing in, tacking it, lining it all up, making sure that it's nice and flush. And then you'll have a nice joint that will grind out fairly smooth. Sometimes some guys, what they'll do is they'll flange the panel and try to basically flange it in and go. That doesn't work that great. This is a lot easier, a lot faster, less effort in this. Sure, sometimes depending on your fit up, like I did on the other side, there might be a little bit of a gap. Like if I was to weld this part right here, right now. My panel here is going to be a bit higher than this one, so I'll just want to make sure that I get those two lined up when I tack it in. So I'll just push in on it slightly, make sure that I don't feel a ridge. And my welder is giving me lots of trouble. And just short, quick tacks like that. I've got my welder set pretty hot. I'll show you what the settings are on my welder. So it's a Lincoln 180 that you can get basically at any hardware store, whatnot. So I've got my wire speed set to 8 and my temperature is at D. So I can just go and give it short, quick zaps to get those small little nice hot tacks and get that penetrated well. So I'm just gonna go and carry on like this, slicing down the side and tacking it in, and I'll bring you back when that's all tacked up. All right, so there's the patch panel all welded in. So we got it nicely ground down. Everything is really nice on this side. I like to go over it at the end with the DA, just gives it a little bit of a nicer finish there. And so now I'm ready to, body work this out and smooth it all out, make it look really, really pretty. All right, well, thanks for tagging along on this one here. On the next video, what I'm gonna be doing is Frenching in my headlights for this car. That's where we mold it all in. We'll mount the bucket from the back side and then mold these in. They have a nice little peak to them too. So that'll be on the next video coming up very soon. But hey, thanks for tagging along on this one and all my other builds. Make sure you hit that subscribe, smash the like, and we'll be getting this car in paint really soon. Thanks very much and take care.